Alright, so we're going to work on page 17 with our colored pencils, and I'm going to take my book really quickly, and you don't necessarily have to do this, but my book page is about 8 inches, a little less than 8 inches, and I need 4 sections, so I'm just going to roughly divide my page into 4 sections so that I have enough room at the bottom for what we're going to do. I don't want to draw too big at the top. So I just kind of roughly put out 2 inches for each section. And like I was saying, as a reminder, we're going to be, this is what we're heading towards. This is what we're working on today with our colored pencil. So I will take you step by step through that. The first colored pencils that you're going to need are your red and your yellow. And I actually had to read the name of my colored pencil to find my red, because on first glance I thought this was an orange pencil, but no, it is. Mine is poppy red. You might have scarlet red or crimson red or light red or any kind of maybe red orange, any kind of red is what you're going to need. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to take 2 pencils and make a 3rd color. Okay, so in color mixing, we have, like if we were using paint, red mixed with yellow will make orange. So that's what we're going to do in colored pencils too. Okay, so I'm going to start with my red, and I'm going to draw a box in this top third here that is about, I'm not measuring, but it's about 1 inch tall by about 4 inches wide. So don't draw it too thin. Okay, make sure it's about 1 inch tall and 4 inches wide. You can measure if you want. I am going to zoom in here. Okay, so we're going to start with the red on the left side, and we're going to divide this box horizontally into thirds. So I'm just making a tick mark for my example. You don't necessarily have to, but this would be 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Okay, you can do that if you want. And we're going to use our red colored pencil. Remember, we're holding it far away from the tip. We're using a really light pressure, and we're just kissing the paper when we draw. Just barely brushing up against the paper. And we're going to go on the left first third and the second third. So we're going to end our red colored pencil here. We're going to do red all the way across here. So I'm using a very light application, a very light pressure, just lightly touching the paper, filling that in. Go ahead and do that. Just one light application. Then you're going to take your yellow colored pencil and you're going to use the yellow on the right 2/3. So you're going to go not only just to where your red went, but across your red to over here. So that looks like this. And yellow is going to be really light, so don't press hard. We'll build up that value. It's going to be very light right now, but I'm going to go across the middle of the red, or the middle of the box over the red. So lightly do this. Okay, and this middle part here is where they're going to blend. Okay, so again, I'm going to take my red and I'm just going to do that same process again, except for this time I'm going to go vertical with my pencil strokes, and I'm going to go slow. So I try not to make really harsh lines. I try to blend it as I go. Going vertical. And then going across again with my yellow from the right across through that blending area. I'm going vertically. And you can start to see how that middle blend color is turning orange. But we want to do quite a few layers of this. So we're just going to keep going. Sorry, I hit the camera. So going another layer. I think this is, I don't know what layer this is. Maybe layer 3 of doing this. Want to get about 6 or more, because then you're going to get that saturation of the paper and you're not going to see very much white of the paper anymore. I can still really see the white of the paper here in this one, so I want to keep going. Now I'm really starting to see that orange appear. Okay, so I just keep going. This might be layer 5, I'm not sure. But do at least 6 of these. Taking your time. If you don't finish, if I have to move on because of time and you don't finish during this class, we were not going to have any homework tonight other than finishing this. So you have time to do that. Okay, so get about 6 layers on and then we will move on. Yes, you can use your own colored pencils if you have them at home, especially if they are the Prismacolor brand or maybe the Faber-Castell brand. Some of the more expensive brands, if you have those at home, for sure use them. But even if you have Crayola and you want to use them, that's fine too, right? So the next thing we're going to use is a light blue. So you should have in your pencils light blue and dark blue. We're going to use just the light blue, the white, and either a gray or a black. And if you have a choice, I'd use a gray. But if you don't have a choice, I'd use the black. The black is just totally fine. Sorry. And you'll see, I was just talking about the brand, right? Crayola is the cheaper brand, and I'm going to use it. Oh, I keep hitting the camera, sorry. I'm going to use the cheaper brand on this, even though I have the more expensive brand here. I'm going to show you. It's totally fine to use this, okay? So we're going to have a light blue, a white, and either a gray or a black. Not a regular pencil, though, okay? This is graphite, it's not colored pencil, so you want to use gray or black colored pencil, okay? So I'm just going to start with my blue, and in the next section down on my journal, I'm going to make another box that is about 4 inches by 1 inch, okay? That 1 inch is really good so that you have enough to blend here. And we're going to go from a lighter blue to a darker blue, but we're going to use that third mark as well. Okay, so the first step is to go all the way across with your light blue. So I'm just using a really light hand, light pressure, and coloring in this box fully with the blue. We're going to make blue go from light to dark. So just one layer, kind of going back and filling in the little spots because I just did it too quickly. So take your time, do a nice job with your blue. Then you're going to take your white. Now white is not going to be seen very much in the beginning, and I don't want you to press hard with the white, at least not yet. Okay, so still that really light application, that light pressure. We're just going to do it on the left third of our, I should do it vertical. So switch directions, and you'll see that it does smear the blue a little bit, even if you just barely kiss the paper with the white, and that's okay. So I'm just going to do on the left side just the white. Then when I come to the middle section, I'm going to use my blue again. And then when I go to the right section, I'm going to use my either gray or black. And if you're using black, do it really lightly. Just a light application of a light layer of that gray. Okay, and you can kind of see it's starting to be lighter to darker. But we want it to be really obviously light to dark. So I'm going to go back with my regular blue again. So the first layer, we did just one whole layer of light blue. Then we did a layer of white, light blue, and gray or black. So that is the pattern we're going to keep doing for 6, 8 layers. So I'm going to go back and do what I did on the first layer, is just go across the entire thing with the light blue, really lightly. Adding a little bit of color into those, the texture of the paper, then coming back with the white on the left, changing the direction of my pencil stroke, trying not to see any pencil strokes. We want to blend, blend, blend really light. In the middle, I'll do blue. And the definition of these colors is going to start to get more and more different, right? The colors are going to be a light blue and a dark blue. Are going to start to come out as we do these layers. And just keep switching back. Between these two layers. And a lot of artists at first are impatient and don't really like why can't I just draw really heavy and get the paper, the pencil down in one layer? Well, you're going to see a lot of your mistakes, and you're going to actually be pushing and indenting the paper, and if you ever had to erase or go over it, you would never be able to get that indent out. So over time you realize that, yeah, this is actually a really good way to use. This is how the colored pencils were designed to use. to be used. You probably have never been taught this. You just were given colored pencils in elementary school and you just drew, right? Like a crayon. But this is the way they're designed to be used. And over time, you will kind of enjoy it if you do enjoy it. If you enjoy art, right? Not everybody's going to enjoy it, but and kind of relax and have this be a calm Zen time. Okay, so I can really start to see the differences now. I'm just going to keep on going. Another couple layers. Definitely don't forget to add your blue back into the gray, the darker area, because you want it to be a dark blue. You don't want it to just be gray. You want it to be dark blue. We're going to go down to the next section and we're going to do a curve. We're going to use our greens. So you should have a dark and a light green. And we'll use white as well. So look for your dark and light green. They might not say dark green. It might say viridian green. This one says true green instead of light green, but you can see one's lighter than the other. So find your light green and your dark green and your white. And I find it's really helpful to put your colored pencils in, like, this is just a tin can that I put my colored pencils in. And so then I can just, they're not rolling all around, and I can have them neatly on my desk. So if you eat a can of beans, wash it out. All right. Or you can use, you know, a salsa jar or whatever, but something a little bit taller works. So we're going to use our lighter green of the two greens first. And in this next third section, I'm going to draw a curve. And so the first thing I'm going to do is up above, kind of in the top part of this section, I'm going to draw a line, a curved line like that, using my lighter green. Then I'm going to draw a second curve that kind of mirrors that. Then I'm going to finish off the curve. And the first step of this is to cover the whole thing with a light layer of green. Now, because it's curved, I'm following that curve when I color. So I'm not just going horizontally like this. I'm trying to follow it. For my horizontal layer, it's curved. It's a curved layer. Really lightly. So in this, I'm just following this curve, light layer, filling it in for my first layer. Now we are going to have those three sections again. And in the middle section right here is going to be, it's the section that's kind of raised. It's the topmost. It's going to collect the most light, and it's going to be the lightest area. So I'm going to ignore that section for right now, and still using my light green, I'm going to fill in the left and right section with another layer. I'm still using that curved motion, and I might be pressing just a tiny bit harder. Well, I am pressing a tiny bit harder, a little bit more pressure, but not a lot. And I'm going to do the same on the right. So one of the things that is hard for beginners is the amount of pressure. And as you do this, more and more, you'll get better. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing practices, because then once we get to our final drawing, you'll have practiced a little bit. So if you mess up on your practice, no big deal. Okay. So all of that has just been with my light green. Now we're going to switch to our dark green. Okay. And I'm going to just, in this left section here, I'm just going to do the right most area really lightly for the first layer here. A real light application of the dark green on this edge here and on this edge here. So only about halfway across this section am I going to put in this dark green. Real lightly. Okay, next I'm going to use my light green again to kind of blend over this area where I put in the dark green. And I am pushing down just a little bit harder again. Okay, so I'm just going across the dark green and a little bit into the green. I'm trying to create that gradient effect from dark to light. And I'll do it on this side too. So blending by just putting a little bit of pressure, not a lot of pressure, into the dark green. Okay, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go in with a little bit of green, a dark green on the edge, adding another layer of dark green. So blending with the color that you're using is a great way to do it, and that's why I gave you some of the Prismacolor Premier, because they are great blenders. Going over with the light green and blending again. Okay, we're trying to get from dark to light and back to dark again. And one thing I'm noticing that I'm doing, that you probably are too, especially on this side, is that it looks like I just have a line where the dark green stops and the light green starts. And I want to get rid of that line or feather out that line. So across that line, I'm going to add some more light layer of dark green to try to kind of blend in that line. I don't know if I'll be able to fully. And sometimes instead of back and forth, I use little circles. I don't know if you can see how I'm using little circles. That is a really good way. Color pencil artists a lot of time use little circles. So I'm adding more dark in the edge and less dark out here, trying to feather that, and going between the dark and the light, again using those circles as a blending motion. Okay. And it really helps if you do one layer of dark, one layer of light, one layer of dark, one layer of light, and really try, push a little harder with the light than you do the dark. Okay, now in the center here, I'm going to blend with my white. So we just have a little bit of green here. I'm just going to take my white and use circles and start to blend. with my white. It's going to take a little bit of time. You can go into the green a little bit on the side. So I'm going just left and right using circular motion. I'm not pressing too hard this first time around. But you can see, I don't know if you can see on the recording, it blended a lot better. I'm going to go back with my light green and do some light, a light layer here, just on the edge, not in the center. We want that center to be white. So we want to kind of feather this out so it gradually goes from light green to dark green, just like a gradient would, and go back with my white again. And little circles blending that center area, keeping it real light green. That is how you blend with your white. And I blend with my medium or my light green too. One thing I wanted to show you is that I have this little guide on Canvas that is what we just did. Exactly what we just did with words. Okay. So there's a guide for you if you need it. If you need to come back and do this again, because you're going to probably do this in your animal a lot. Last thing on the page that we're going to do down at the bottom is a sphere. And a sphere, for the sphere, we're going to use our blue again. We're going to use a light blue. We're going to use a white. And we're going to use our dark blue. So if you don't have dark blue, you could use your gray or your black. So kind of like what we did up here. So if you have a dark blue and a light blue, use both of them. If you only have one blue, then use a gray. Okay, and we're going to make our sphere, we're going to start with a very light circle. And so just really lightly, and you can sketch in your circle. If you have one of your lids that's about an inch tall, you could trace it if you want. I am just going to sketch mine in. It does not have to be perfect at all. We're not going for perfect. Okay, you can clearly see mine is not perfect. If you want to, you can erase some of your sketch marks, but I'm going to be drawing right over it so it doesn't bother me one bit. But I have my circle here. Okay, and I want to show you a little bit about spheres in 3 dimensions in colored pencil. So this is how to draw a 3-dimensional sphere, and we're going to use a method called chiaroscuro, and it's basically a method for applying value in 2-dimensional piece of artwork to create the illusion of a 3-dimensional solid form. And this was started in the Italian Renaissance, used by artists such as Leonardo da Vinci and Raphael. If those names sound familiar, Donatello, Michelangelo, Raphael, and Leonardo are also the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that show decided to honor them by naming their characters after they call them the Masters of Illusion. The Italian Renaissance artists, very, very famous artists. And so in this system, if light is coming from one direction, then the light and the shadow will kind of follow these rules. So here are the rules right here. So the highlight is number 1. It is the lightest value. This is where the direct light hits the surface. And number 2, this is the light area, and as the surface curves, it doesn't get much light, so it becomes slightly darker. So we're going to draw it that way. Then here the shadow area, number 3. The surface curves away from the light, so it doesn't receive any direct light, but it does get some, indirect light by the surroundings. That's why it's not black, but it's dark blue. And then the reflected light down here is number 4. It's just kind of light bounced around from the surroundings. It's just a little bit lighter than number 3. And number 5 is the cast shadow. So it is the shadow made by the object blocking the light. It's the darkest right here, and as it kind of goes away from the object, it feathers out, it gets a little bit lighter. Okay, and so on Canvas is this document where it kind of shows you these 3 steps, but I'm going to do it here with you, okay? The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to draw very lightly with my light blue pencil those kind of areas. So remember, the first area was the highlight. It was a circle. It wasn't at the edge, but it was kind of up towards the top left area. Just really lightly drawing in that circle. And then the next area was kind of the edge where the lit area and the core shadow. And then the next area was where the core shadow and the reflected light. So it's going to go from the whitest, right in this little circle is going to be the whitest, and then it's going to get bluer and bluer and dark blue, and then a little bit lighter blue as well. And then, oh, we got to add in our shadow here. It's kind of a little curved area there. So that is, I know it's really light on the recording or on the video, but that is how we're going to start. And we're going to start with our light blue, and we're not going to draw in this circle. Okay, and we're going to do our light layer following the curve of the sphere. Okay, avoiding that. Go around it if you want. Okay, so we're using a curved motion, just getting a light blue layer in. This is going to have lots of layers. Lots and lots of layers. We can fill in the shadow too. So I just did a really quick layer of blue. I'm going to kind of fill in my little gaps here. I'm going to start, it is really just a gradient on a 3-dimensional surface. So when we practiced gradients last class, that's just really what we're doing. So it is going to go from light to dark and maybe back just a little bit lighter again. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to avoid kind of this big light area, and I'm going to add in another direction, but still following the contour. So kind of still curving. I'm going to add another layer of this light blue. We're still just using light blue in this darker area. Because as the form curves away from the light, it's going to be darker. See that? Yeah, that's a better representation of the color. Okay, now we're going to add a light layer of our darker blue, and if you don't have darker blue, again, you can use gray or black, and this time I'm going to use just little circles, and I'm going to fill in this band here. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. With little circles, really lightly. The circles overlap, kind of blend together. You can see my dark areas starting to appear. I'm also going to do it down at the bottom here, just where the shadow meets the sphere. I'm going to go back in with another light layer of my lighter blue, adding a little bit more pressure in the dark area and less pressure out here. Using the side of my pencil still, holding my pencil farther away from the tip, but not really getting a lot right in here. I can go around. See, it's this area that is getting darker is a round area. So it's curved. It's almost like multiple circles kind of going around. Okay? And I'm just going to keep doing this process of adding layers. Going back with my dark again, and another layer here. I don't want a line, so I want this layer to not be a straight line down, but just little circles. Little circles. Same here. I don't want it to be a line, so I want to kind of feather it out a little bit along this edge here. I can go back with my light blue and push a little harder in the dark area, just a little bit, to get a little bit more pigment down, because the next thing we're going to do, and this might be something that you have to do after class, is you're going to take your colorless blender. So at this point you might just want to watch, and then you can do the rest after class. This will be recorded. So the colorless blender is just that. It's a colorless PC1077 Prismacolor, and it blends, and it's amazing. So you want to use circles, and I'm going to go in my darkest part, and I'm just rubbing it over the colored pencil with a light pressure, a little bit of pressure though. And you can see as I do it, it kind of makes it look almost like it is wet sometimes. It gives it a little bit of a shine, but it really blends out that colored pencil. Now you wouldn't want to do this at the beginning. You want to do this when you think you have enough colored pencil down. So it's something that you reserve for the end. Okay. And I'm going over the darkest areas first. And I'm trying not to put too much pressure on. I can do this as many times as I need to blend it out. Okay? And this takes time. So that's why I'm saying you're not going to get it done in class. You can blend all up here, all the way up. Oops. Just using, you notice my hand is a little bit closer to the tip, okay, with this colorless blender. Now that I've taught you to keep it far away. Okay. And you're just going to keep blending and keep blending until you get that sphere like, oops, I forgot to blend the shadow here too. You can blend the shadow. This just blurs it all together, makes it nice and fuzzy. You can go back with another layer of colored pencil if you need to fill in, but the blender is one of the last layers that you're going to do. Okay? Let me see if I can get a good focus here. All right, that's what's gonna look. What it's gonna look like.